Hi, we are Team Fly Swatters, and we're going to be talking about the fruit fly mystery genotype problem. Here's the question, and pause if you like.
Oh, so for the first part of the question, we see that we have an affected female for singed bristles and then a wild type male who has sepia eyes, and they're mated together and we get the F1 generation, so we get the hybrids. And our first part of the question, we wanted to see if this inheritance was autosomal or sex-linked. We crossed out that it's not autosomal because in the F1 only the males are affected, so it is sex-linked, specifically X-linked. Because since the males are affected, that means that the affected allele is on the X and it's passed on from the mother to the son. And on the side, you would see a test cross. So, for example, if small a is the mutant allele and then big A is a wild type, and then a female affected with a male that's wild type, if they're crossed, we see that only the X that's affected is passed on from the mother to the son. So no male is affected. And again, we can specify that it's X-linked because we know it's not Y-linked, because if it was Y-linked, then females can be affected, so the mother wouldn't be affected in the first place. And generally, just the Ys pass on to the males, and that's can see in the test cross that the Y that is affected is passed on to the males, so only males would be affected, but that doesn't happen, so it's X-linked.
Okay, to determine if the gene is dominant or recessive, we're going to see based off of what's given. So, since the parent generation has an affected mother and all the males in the F1 generation have singed bristles, this is a big indicator that is X-linked recessive because if it was dominant, that means it would be an affected mother with all affected male offsprings.
So for eye color, we determined it's autosomal, meaning that it doesn't show a sex linkage and it affects both male and female.
Okay, and once again, for dominant versus recessive, since the male parent in the parent generation is sepia and all of the females are wild type in the F1 generation, this means that the female parent must be homozygous dominant for the eye color. And since no F1 offspring showed the sepia gene, but it came back in the F2 generation, means that it skipped a generation and is therefore autosomal recessive.
Getting back to the question, what Vanessa said about the eye color for the female, we already know that it has to be homozygous dominant because if she was heterozygous, the F1 generation would be half wild type eye color and half sepia eyes. In the case of the singed bristles, the female has to be homozygous because the trait is recessive. To display the recessive trait, she has to be homozygous for it. Going to the male, we know that the male has the wild type bristles, which means that he has the hemizygous allele for the wild type bristles on his X chromosome. If he had the mutant singed bristles, then not only would the F1 have females with singed bristles, which we don't see, he would also have singed bristles, which wasn't part of the initial conditions in the question. For eye color, we know he's homozygous recessive for sepia eyes because it's a recessive trait and he displays it, meaning he has to have two copies of the allele. And just to double check, we made a test cross using these genotypes, and we got what the question gives us, which is all wild type females and singed bristle males. And then we went one step further and we crossed that F1 generation, and we see the exact same ratio that was in the initial question, which is 3:1 to 3:1, wild type sepia singed and sepia and singed for both males and females.